Yeah.
What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Game On Financial Podcast, episode number 9. We are talking about money, but that's because we couldn't come up with a better title. So we're going to talk about a bunch of things today, but Joseph, I'm going to let you lead because I don't remember what all the topics even are at this point.
No, yeah, we're super excited. And you know, it's funny because Garrett and I were talking about yesterday how we need to be more animated on camera. So today we're really going to be trying to, you know, be animated.
Super animated.
Be entertaining. We're trying
super
to entertain. No, so yeah, topics for today are going to be probably centered around some of our services and kind of the why behind some of the things that we do, which is going to be exciting, I think, because, well, it might not be exciting. Some of you guys might not care at all, but I do think that it's valuable for some people to kind of see, one, kind of how we service some of our clients and some of our content creators, but also why they would even want to work with us in the first place. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have some news to talk about. We're actually late. We're running like an hour behind because of the new setup. So whoever's stopped by before, you're probably noticing that we got a little bit new setup here. We're testing it out. Let us know if you guys like it. If you don't, then we'll go back.
Complain and blame. You can blame Joseph. If you don't like the setup, listen, these mic arms are super nice and fancy, but if you think the setup is just whack, you don't like it at all, comment. If you're watching on YouTube, comment. If you're in chat right now, obviously let us know. If they're really good and you enjoy it, then don't say nothing because this was all Joseph's idea and we don't want to, gas him up too much.
No, I actually didn't really know that it was going to be my idea. I just kind of suggested something, and then when the mic arms came in and we thought they might be wrong, Garrett tried to blame it all on me. So
that's how you run a business. If things are going wrong, the best thing you can do is just blame anybody that's not you, like anybody but yourself. Like Joseph,
this sent me earlier. It was like you can blame other people, but you'll never learn from your own mistakes or something like that. It's like you were actually saying the exact opposite.
Yeah. So. Well, No, the mic arms, they look better on camera than they do because right now to me and you, obviously, we talk about staging and stuff like that. And we're all new to this. So to me and you looking, we're like, dang, these things are huge. But when you look at the camera and everything, it actually, I think it looks fine. Yeah. So I like the setup. I do like this. I think it's more personal and obviously it gets us a little more, we're taking up more of the frame, which is, in my opinion, much more personal because most of the things we're talking about when we're doing this, like the ultimate goal for us is we have 100, 200, 5 million viewers just because they can then ask the questions because our entire goal is to answer those questions. It's not like
I definitely think as we grow, it'll be more Q&A style.
It's not just for us to get on and talk, just to talk. I mean, we could do this without the camera rolling, but we want to help people. So
J-Man in the chat, I think when we have a guest, we'll probably put them somewhere like right in this area on the screen. Is probably what we'll end up doing. So hopefully, our goal is to get guests on. For those of you wondering, that is the goal in the future. So we're working on it. We got some actual accounting work because that is what we do. So we're kind of busy with that right now, but we are going to be getting some guests on. So, let's just jump right into it. How have things been going for you? How's the week been? I know you've been working on a lot of stuff, so fill us in a little bit.
The week has been busy, but busy in a good way. So we've talked pricing, we've talked, I don't know how many things as far for clients and stuff like that. I think these are like subtle changes, but for us on the back end, some of these are not necessarily complete overhauls, but just trying to find better ways to do things. We've been doing this long enough now where we can kind of look at, just basic stuff like how we get stuff from our clients, how we get information, these things, and trying to make it as easy and as frictionless. I've used that word. I think that's going to be the theme of this year is like friction, because anytime I see it now, like a point where a client may, for some reason, give us a hard time and like gathering information, if a client has to log in,
right? Like
pain points,
finding those pain points and being able to, I guess, seek them out and figure a way to fix them. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And if we can get rid of those, that makes it so much easier for a client. They're more willing to tell other people about us and have other people use our services because they know, like, we spent the first we spent the first little while just trying just trying to, dial in what we were doing. And that was taxes and bookkeeping, just getting it done. Yeah. And dialing in behind the scenes how we do it. So using QuickBooks and all that stuff. And we've got that locked. I mean, there's always something we can improve there.
Sure.
But now we're pretty fast there. Fast enough to move on to the next stage, which in my opinion is, okay, make it as client-friendly, as user-friendly as possible. If John or, Ben or anybody else were to send us a client, we want to be able to onboard them, get their stuff caught up, and get the job done within 2 weeks if we can. We want to do it in 1 week or a day. That's shooting a little high because there are just natural like barriers to that. how can we remove the client from it and make it as easy on them as possible?
It's something we talk about a lot in, just in general business knowledge out there, and in kind of searching on what we need to change and do. We talk about the concept of more, better, or new. And what that means is, in short form is, do you need more of something? Do you need to make whatever your thing is better, or do you need to do something new? And for us, it's definitely not been changing anything and doing something new, because we do have a good system here. And while we do need more, we do need more clients and more service options and all these things. Mainly, it's getting better, right?
Yeah.
And how can we get better at these things? And I think me and you are so. Maybe it's a perfectionist thing, maybe it's an OCD thing, but when we see a situation where something can be better, we want to fix it like right then. And I know you especially, you'll get very one-track minded on that thing until it's fixed, which I think can be a good thing. But
and I mean, tunnel vision, it has its flaws too, obviously, and so I have to look out for that. And that's what's great about having a team, is because when that happens, you guys will point it out. But that being said, like, sometimes you just need to
Appreciate
turn.
You, John.
Yeah, thank you, John. Sometimes you just need to turn the dog loose, set the focus on something and then go after it and get it done. And I think while you and J-Man have been crushing the books and tax returns, we haven't done tax returns heavy at all this summer because we haven't had to. We just got them done, and that reiterated, like, okay, the process is pretty good. Like, all of our tax returns are out except for the ones that do truly have a problem, and like we're waiting on the IRS or something. There's just something we can't.
Some situation.
Yeah, some situation, but there's just not that many of those.
Right.
And so, to your point, there's a lot of, we need more. Like, what got us to 100K or 200K, if we're trying to go for 1 million or 10 million, that's a different problem altogether. You're going to need at some level a lot more. But also, we do have to get better. We have to refine our processes. Like, we can't always say, like, oh, we brought on 10 clients, let's go hire somebody. It's like, no, we need to dial in and get efficient, because if you bring somebody else on and your system just overall isn't that great, you're going to end up in the same boat, which is where you're always busy. You're still not making as much money because all the new money you got, you had to hire somebody to do it. Yep. Versus we could bring on how many clients right now with, well, one, J-Man, we did just hire J-Man full-time, so shout out J-Man. But with J-Man coming on full-time, it's like we have an additional 2 days, 3 days a week. Now we need to fill that time.
Have capacity, yeah.
But even beyond that, we already have capacity just because we got better. We are efficient, so like we built in efficiencies, so that now we can do things we can just do them faster.
Right. Faster and easier and just all around. The process is better, and so we're creating capacity in that alone.
And that's straight to the bottom line. Those things right there are straight to the bottom line. We're not growing our team. Our softwares are dialed in. We'll make, we'll have little small softwares here and there where we realize, like, oh, we could maybe do this a little bit better. Switching from our client portal to Dropbox, which ultimately I think is what we're going to go with. Mm-hmm. Doing things like that, if our portal cost us $50 a month per user and Dropbox now costs us $50 per month per user, that doesn't change anything. So really, our software is not going to get more expensive. Our people are going to get more expensive, but that's a good thing. I'll always live with that. They're not going to get so much more expensive that it eats into your margin that much. Right. And so that's going to be net profit at the end of the day. And that leads to everybody's salaries going up eventually. And that leads to...
Love to hear that, by the way.
Love to hear that. That's great. We have a team of 3. I mean, so like at the end of the day, you and J-Man, and we've been very transparent about this, like y'all know what's going on and kind of where the money is, because y'all are so instrumental in the proposal process in the first place. Mm-hmm. So, you can kind of look at, like, we brought on, call it $300,000 worth of client work, is like, where does that go? Yeah. Well, we know, because our processes are so simple and everything's dialed in.
Well, and the cool thing is too, we want to do so much more. So we're super excited, because what does that inevitably do? Yeah, the business makes more money, Game On grows, more money for everybody, sure. But at the end of the day, we get to use that's a tool, right? Now we get to invest in other things, right? We get to upgrade the setup for the content. We get to hire more people on that can help us grow certain departments that right now we're not utilizing. That's something that we've been talking a lot about, is just marketing in general, because we really haven't. Our growth has been specifically based around referrals and just clients telling other clients or potential clients to come talk to us. So it really is, it will enable us. And that's really why we're excited to do it, because there's so much more that we want to do. And I think that's really exciting. So,
that's the update.
Yeah. Well, and I guess for me, a little bit update is quarterly meetings, right? So being that one of the big things that we do, and we might talk about this a little bit later on in depth, is one of the big things we do for our clients is quarterly tax planning, right? And so while we're meeting with them monthly, some of them we're not talking to all that often. We try to get with them at least once a quarter, right, to go over where everything's at, right? Get them in the loop and make sure that they know what's going on. And so, quarter one, kind of back in April, May timeframe, after the first 3 or 4 months of the year had gone by, we did it then. Yep. And then now being July, we're through June, we're through Q2. Now we're kind of going through quarterly meetings there.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the full benefit of even that, because we got through so many tax returns so fast this year because of all the work we did in December. Mm-hmm. And those were for a lot of our clients who had just signed at that time. And I hope this year we have the same, influx in late end of year type deal. I still think all those clients that came on then and now they've been integrated in our system for a year. We've been doing this planning. We're talking about having tax returns prepped January, February, and that's truly going to be 90% of them. Mm-hmm. And again, we haven't even seen that benefit yet because we've just been grinding out the quarterlies like we're supposed to do. We're just doing what we're supposed to do. Well,
and what that process does for not only the client, but for us, we're going to talk in a little bit about what it does for the client, but for us as a business running, a service-based business where we're doing accounting services, is it helps prepare us so much more for the next year. And a lot of times what we have happen is we have clients come on that need a lot of setup, right? Yeah. They don't have books, so we set up books. They don't have an S Corp or an LLC, so we set those things up.
Payroll.
They don't have payroll, so we set up payroll. A lot of our growth in the last year and a half has been setting up clients from step one, which I think we will continue to do. However, we haven't even reaped the reward of having clients that have been set up correctly. Yeah. And we talked about last episode a little bit about how to set up your content creation business from the beginning. And I think for a lot of these clients, we're kind of helping them through that. Yeah. And so, in the years to come, the clients that have been on with us for a couple of years now, they're smooth as butter, right? They're rolling. Their returns are easy. Their quarterly meetings are easy because they kind of know the gig, right? But with these newer clients, we bring on a client, it might take us a year, not to get them set up, but it might take us a year before they feel like they understand what's going on. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is still kind of that investment period where we're doing a lot on the front end, but neither us or the client kind of reap the benefit until maybe tax season rolls around and it does go smoothly,
Yeah, and this is honestly, in my opinion, this is a great segue into kind of one of our talking points today is mentioning not reaping the benefit until tax time. That's very true. But I have had situations, and you have too, just an experience. We had this at a previous firm as well, but just now I had, for example, a client reach out the other day, and this person they were getting a lease on an apartment. Yep. And they were not using us for bookkeeping or anything like that. They just want a tax return. Mm-hmm. That's fine. This is one of those not problem clients, but problem situations where they can't necessarily get me all the details because they've never really worked with a CPA before. And so
they don't know what they need.
They don't know what they need. And I'm trying to work with them through, and they're young. And I'm trying to work through them.
How many times does that happen?
Well, in content creation, it happens a lot because a lot of the creators are so young, right? And so they've never had to do this before. And so there's you got to factor in, there's a patience aspect you just have to have. Excuse me. And so that was fine and everything. We're getting the return worked out. I've been in correspondence with the IRS, getting transcripts, but they were trying to get a lease on an apartment. They can't provide a 2022 return because it's not done yet. Right. They can't provide financials, even though I expressed at the beginning, you're going to need these eventually. They were like, okay, at this time, I don't know if I want to do it. And I was like, that's fine. I don't want to take your money if you don't see the value. My job is to communicate that value. And if you're not sold on it, don't buy it. That's fine. But here's a situation we could run into. And I expressed that. This was back during tax season. And on their mind, tunnel vision, they're thinking like tax return, tax return, tax return. And I'm like, okay, we'll worry about the books later. Let's just try and get the return done. The return's been on pause because we're trying to get this info. Now they're trying to get this lease. They don't have books. So they can't verify income with a profit and loss statement. They can't verify income with a tax return. They can't find their W-2s from a previous year. Right. And
they're in a pinch.
And the sad thing about this is, and what I definitely don't recommend doing is they called me when they had already gone through all the other steps and they're hoping to move in like a week. And now it's like, we got to produce somehow a tax return, which the tax return's been on hold this entire time because we can't get info. Right. We got to get books done, something. And so this is a massive project and a massive undertaking to do it all in less than a week. And I just expressed, that's why we're changing kind of a lot of things we're doing is we got to be faster. Right. but not for these situations necessarily. Just we want to be faster in general. This is just a situation where bookkeeping would have helped this person, because although the tax return is still behind, the entire tax return hinges on the books.
Yeah.
But also the apartment complex, they want to see income. And how do you prove income if you're self-employed? You know, you don't get a W-2. You don't get 1099s.
Some kind of record showing that.
Yeah. And I mean, you get 1099s, but you get them for the previous year. And so if an apartment complex or a mortgage lender or whoever, if they want to see that information now for the current year, you don't have a current year 1099 because those don't get produced until the next year.
And how many clients do we have that come to us, or prospects that come to us, that have never had financial statements? They've never had records.
They don't know they don't know what they are. I mean, they don't even know. In
addition to that, it's a good point too that a lot of our clients that we work with, they've come to us because they've had a huge year, right?
Yeah.
And so we've had situations, I kid you not, where AGI, so adjusted gross income on the tax return for prior year, was less than $50,000, and this year it's over $500,000.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we've had clients that they just have a crazy year. So think about it. They're having a huge year. They're halfway through the year. They don't have any records, and obviously they're making good money. They can afford a substantially sized house or an apartment that has substantial rent.
Yep.
And they can't even prove that, hey, I'm actually killing it. I'm actually making this money and I can afford it. And apartment or even trying to get a mortgage, they're going to be completely like, I don't care. Like, you got to prove it. That's just how they operate. So it's a good point. I want to frame this question to you because we're already on the topic, but besides needing to get approved for a lease, what are some other reasons that a client would want books, right? Or bookkeeping, or why would they even need an accountant as a content creator?
Yeah. That's a very good question. And I think we don't do a good enough job of not selling this, but like presenting the value. And the reason is every client that comes to us really is coming to us thinking taxes like that. And that's not their fault. That is 100% like our bread and butter.
That's always number one on their mind.
That's always number one. But other reasons are just like this, an apartment complex or a mortgage lender, right? How many times have we had a client say, hey, trying to get a mortgage on a house, a new house, I'm trying to refinance my mortgage, I'm trying to do this, and they're trying to verify income. That happens a lot. Mm-hmm. Any situation where some third party, some outside vendor, I mean, it could be a car dealership, which generally that's not the case because they're going to pull your credit and they'll sell you a vehicle off of that. But
sure.
if they were to ask for income, proof of income, and you can't provide a pay stub, right, because you don't have a traditional job. Now, if we're running payroll for this client,
right,
any clients that have an S corporation, we're running payroll, then they do have a pay stub. But for the ones that come to us and they're like, I just want bookkeeping and all that, anything. I mean, I'm trying to think of other specific situations where you would have, where a vendor would ask for income.
Sure.
But it happens more than you realize. And the thing is like, it doesn't happen until it does, and then it's really quick, right? So this apartment lease, right? It just happened like that. This person thought like, oh, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to get this apartment, I'll have it done, I don't know, less than a month.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with thinking that unless you're self-employed and you don't have books. Because now like they want to verify income, and any apartment complex is going to want to verify income, sure, right? Especially, if it's like we mentioned the $50,000 creator. Maybe it's like a low income housing. If you have one creator with an entire family and they only have $50,000 in earnings, they're a low income neighborhood is going to want to verify that often. It's not just going to be one time. They're going to continuously verify that income. Yeah. And then for the higher ones, it's even worse because the effective tax rate on a $500,000 client, right? Your effective taxes in that situation where it jumps from 50K to 500, they're going to be surprised by taxes. And now they're going to say like, I just put all that money on a down payment on a house.
Yep.
And it's going to be like,
We've had this happen, right? We've had it happen where we've actually had a quarterly planning meeting to tell the client, hey, you're going to owe X amount. And they have bought a house because they're killing it. And now they have no cash in the bank. So they can't pay their taxes. At least they can't.
Not right then. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I would say the other just big thing for me when I look at bookkeeping and just a lot of the services we provide is having records is so important for planning, right? I don't think a lot of creators think about their content creation really as a business in general, but I don't think they look at their content creation business as something they should be planning for the future on, or forecasting or budgeting. Those words kind of sound like, corporate, right? They sound like,
well, they do.
That's something that big companies, that's something that corporations do. And while yes, it is, and it's something that we do, you as a content creator, even if it's just you and, your money and your contractors that work with you, you should be thinking about what's next. You should be having some sort of plan for the next 6 months. You know as well as I do, this industry is very up and down. Depending on the game that people play, depending on the style of content that you create, there's a very real situation where 1 month you're bringing in 25, 30 grand a month, and then 2 or 3 months later you're bringing in 5K a month. And while obviously, you could still make ends meet, the projection is not the same at all. And so the biggest thing for me is just that the client knows where their money is, right? They can see their bank account. They
How
can see
often?
How much cash.
How often do they need to know? Like, what would you say? Like month to month, or like, is this
in my opinion, from seeing how a lot of different industries work, but definitely in content, I think it should be monthly. I don't think a client should go more than a month, maybe 2 max, without knowing, how did I do last month?
Yeah.
How did I do? What was that payout from Twitch? When they're streaming or they're streaming on Kick and their gifted subs are rolling and they know they're having a good month.
Yeah.
I want to, if it's me and it's my company, my business, I want to see what did it turn out to be? What did those payouts end up being? Because obviously we know payouts usually are the next month. So I just think it's so important for creators, whether you're 18 years old or whether you're 30 years old or whether you're 50 years old, to be looking at this as a business, and you should know how much money you're making, right? You should know how the year is going.
Well, even when, like you mentioned it, the payouts do lag, and so they're behind a month, right? Yep. So you have a great month on Twitch and you don't get paid for that month until the next month. You should still know, right? And it's not because, like, so for example, we're doing the books and records, but this is something like, whether you want to be or not, you're a business owner now. And so like you have to dial that in, especially when you start making real money, because in a lot of ways, when you start making the real money, and you're a content creator and you get past, just living paycheck to paycheck, and you're making bigger money, you would think like, oh, it's going to get easier because I'm going to have more money to afford more, time, basically. Some of that is true, but it also gets harder. You have other obligations. Expenses
go up.
Yeah, expenses go up. And also, like with the IRS, you can wait till year end and then just pay your taxes in April, and that's fine. But you're going to get hit with penalties and interest if you don't prepay. Like, that's a very real thing. And when you're talking about a $500,000 client, especially as interest rates go up, because the federal interest rate is based on all of that, penalties and interest on those amounts are no small number.
If you owe $100K in taxes, and then there's penalties and interest that's 3% or 5% of that number, that adds up quick.
Yeah, and it's you may be wasting $5K, and some people may look at that and say, "Well, I don't care. It helps me avoid the headache." But when instead you could like pay us the $5K and we'll at least mitigate it, because as your income scales up, the penalties and interest are going to scale up with it. And I just don't, it's hard for me because this was a hard adjustment for me just running this business, is because I'm thinking like, oh, I can just do taxes. That's not the case. I spend very little time doing all that, and I'm doing everything else.
It never works out exactly how you expect it.
Okay, exactly. So you're going to steal my line. That's what I always say to everybody else, is like, whatever you think. Like, if you think something's going to take an hour to do...
You do say that a lot.
You think it's going to take an hour, go ahead and budget 2, because it's never like you think, oh, I'm going to get in there and it's going to be quick and easy. Like, no.
Garrett and I used to have a boss that always used to bring us a project, and she would always
say... Should only take 15 minutes.
She would always say, this should only take 15 minutes.
Every time.
This real easy.
Every time.
This could be a project that would take you an hour. It could be a project that would take you days.
A month. It was like... It was consistent. This was why it's so funny to us, because I know it's kind of an inside joke, but at the same time, the fact that when you said that, I knew exactly what you were talking about. It is like, I think every firm has one of those too, but not our firm. I mean, we just don't have enough like people to say that we have that person in house, or if we do, you would probably tell me. But nothing ever takes as long as you think it is. Nothing's ever as easy as you think it is. Honestly, the opposite too. It's usually not as hard as you think it is. There are a lot of projects I'm like, oh, I really don't want to deal with this. And then I finally do it, and I'm like, that wasn't that bad.
It wasn't as bad. Yeah. To tie it back a little bit to the conversation where we were talking about, I think that the month in, month out is so important, because I've seen this with some creators, this situation where, while they are making decent money, their payouts from whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Kick are sizable, and they are doing well. They've already kind of planned the next month's expenses, right? Yeah. They have rent to pay. They're supporting another person, whatever it may be. And we've had situations where people have gotten their account has been, locked out of, or the payout did not go through for whatever reason. And, they're sitting there looking at, well, I had this amount of subs last month. I should be getting around about this amount. Let's just call it $10,000. And that payment doesn't hit.
This happened a lot with Facebook.
This happened.
We had Facebook creators who we probably had 2 or 3 like around the same time where
maybe more than that, yeah.
Yeah, where I remember, and they were like, my payment got blocked.
It could be because their account got hacked. It could be because they're holding it for some reason, whatever. But the point is they were just expecting, I'm going to get that payout next month. And not only that, they were most likely going to spend most of that payout on, that month's expenses, just like you said. Well, what happens when we have a quarterly meeting and we say, yeah, and you need to make a payment of $8,000 for your quarterly payment. And they're like, $8,000, you know, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so this is why it's so important, in my opinion, to know where you're at, right? How much money am I making? Obviously, I know taxes are coming, most likely. If you're working with someone, probably but how much is it going to be? What is that looking like? And so we find it very fulfilling to be able to work with clients and meet with them quarterly and say, hey, look, you're doing well. You're crushing it. We had a call the creator the other day. You're absolutely killing it. There's going to be a tax impact here, and it's going to be substantial. So let's talk about how we can mitigate that and plan for it. So
I'll take it a step further, and like working with a CPA, whether you use us or anybody or just any CPA, one, you should base your CPA, when you go to pick one, right, you should base it on, are you going to be able to get these quarterly calls in, and are you going to be able to get them in consistently? Like any accountant, if you're making, let's say $500,000, but less than that, if you're making 150 plus from content creation, you're self-employed. Really any self-employed job, but content creators are who we work with. If you're making that and you go get an accountant, don't get one that's just going to prepare your return, because then you're just going to get hit with that stuff. It's like, okay, well, now I know that, so I'm looking for quarterly meetings. Well, now you need to go through a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, because our content creators, a lot of times, we know we're having the quarterly meetings. They know we're having the quarterly meetings. And when we get on the call, they're like, oh, I expected to owe tax. I just didn't know it was going to be that much and all that.
Yep.
But some of them that we've been working with now for over a year, they just expect it. And it's so much nicer, because when we get on the call, it's not like this massive surprise. You're going to have quarterly calls and you're going to forget, because you're a business owner and your job, is to run the business. You're not thinking taxes, and that's a lot of what you hire a CPA for. You have to give that CPA time to build the relationship and go through a couple of those meetings, right? It is uncomfortable at first, because now we're doing it quarterly, and you may in the past have only been used to paying once a year. Mm-hmm. Again, you're a business owner now, so you have to shift that mindset to we're doing it quarterly.
We talked to a client yesterday, you and I, and what did they say? They said, every time I get paid, I just look at that $1 as about 65 cents.
Yeah, right? I don't get it. Yeah,
that's good
100%.
Because that's the truth. They're about 35% for a lot of these creators that are making in that range. Maybe some, their tax rate's a little less than that, but a lot of the times when you add a state component, we're talking 30 to 40% is going to taxes. And so it's a very real thing. And, I think we get a lot of enjoyment, fulfillment out of working with them and being able to, express this, but it does take that person as the creator kind of stepping up to say, I'm ready to take that step.
Stay there for a second, because I think it's actually funny that the client call that you're referring to, that same client asked us, how much money should I move to my personal account? How much should I leave in my business account? And like questions like that, people just don't consider. And maybe they do, but that's another situation where you might want monthly bookkeeping instead of like just a tax return. Just that it's like you want to ask those general business questions of how much should I leave in a business account? Like, what is a good amount to, because he wanted to move it to a high interest savings account, which makes perfect sense. And so questions like that just come up. And if you don't have somebody in your corner to answer those questions, somebody knowledgeable enough and somebody you trust, you're losing out on a lot. Because
not only that, but I think you're not able to ask those questions, but are you even thinking about that, right? If you're going month in, month out, and the cash is just coming in, you're paying your expenses or whatever, are you even thinking about like, should I move this money, or what should I do with the money, or how much is taxes? Like these questions, a lot of these things don't even actually come up in your mind, because it's not day in, day out. But when we're making them sit down, a lot of the times, like, hey, we have to hop on this call.
Yep.
That's helping kind of get them in the mindset.
Yeah. We'll bring it to a creator and say, hey, look, you got a lot of cash in the bank. Like there may be a better use of this. You may,
right.
We may want to look into a retirement plan. We may want to do this and that. And a lot of times our creators are like, I just don't feel like doing that right now. The cash makes me feel good. I'm not interested in a retirement account, this and that. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at least you're thinking about, like, at least we've brought it to your attention, and you've thought about it, you've articulated why you don't want it, and we said, okay, these are the consequences. It's your money, whatever you want to do. And then you just move on. And that way, again, I think our biggest thing, just avoiding surprises. Like at that point, you get to tax season, you're not surprised. You get to the end of the year, you're not surprised. You have a lot of money in the bank and you hit this, drought of content and you're living off that money and you're not surprised. It's like you just buy yourself the flexibility to do whatever.
And just you can prepared, right?
And you can have all that by paying an accountant, like by paying somebody to get in there and actually be a third party looking at these things. And again, you don't have to use us. I'm not plugging our, this is our podcast, but I'm not plugging our services. I'm just saying that's why you would want to have an accountant outside of just a tax return.
I was going to say, it's funny because I think every single planning call we've done this week, you have basically shown the difference of what we're saving the client by doing whatever services we're providing and the strategy we're using. And in every single case, I think this week, we've saved them more than our bill. So
that has been every case in specifically with our S elections. That's been every case so far since we started serving creators. We have not had one where we didn't save them more than we cost.
Yeah, and so that's
we need to raise our fees
to get to. Well, and because we're doing tax work, it's part of the IRS code that we are not allowed to charge a percentage of savings.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Anything like that. So we do have set pricing, but I do think that's interesting. Is that while you're sitting here kind of plugging these these services and using an accountant, and people think, oh, thousands of dollars of tax services. Really, you're kind of getting that back in your pocket just by the savings work.
You get it for free, and then you still get money back that you wouldn't have got alternatively. So you get a return on investment, plus you get a year's worth of services. Like, truly, we need to raise our prices, but in order to raise prices, we have to do a better job of communicating that level of value.
So I'm super glad that you just got to that point.
Now I'm scared. I don't have the notes pulled up. I just have chat pulled up, so I don't know where this is going. I'm interested to hear.
That's the next question I was going to ask, and you just touched on that exactly, is we got to do a better job of communicating that value. So the question I had written out before is, how do we as professionals providing professional level service to these content creators, how do we convey that value? How do we show them value? How do we communicate it in a way that they see, wow, okay, this service is worth me paying for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of value is based on just making them feel like everything's going to be okay. Like making them feel peace. Yeah, you're effectively giving them peace of mind.
And I'd say that's 80% of what we build people.
At least.
That's what it's for.
You just know it's taken care of. Like no matter what the situation, because the thing is, I could tell a prospective client, somebody who's not, they're kind of on the fence. I would tell them like straight up, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to save you. I know I'm going to save you money. Like, I mean, I'm fairly confident. And if I didn't, on the base level, you still have an obligation to file. So that at least is getting done, right? Sure. But on top of that, I'm saving you money. The thing is I don't know what form that's going to take. You may get a letter tomorrow from the IRS, and that's something I couldn't have planned for. If that happens, we're going to take care of it. Yep. It's okay. I don't know how long it's going to take. It may take a month. It may take a day. But we're going to get it fixed. And
so
I think
on top of communicating it just by, hey, we handled this for you or we handled that, what would you say is another way that you feel like we're conveying value to clients?
How we communicate it.
Yeah.
So 100% making that conversation right there that I was just talking about it, but being able to do it in Discord. That alone sells more of our clients than I think anything else. And I don't think they know that, but the fact that like we set ourselves apart immediately when they email us or whatever, we hop on this call. Like, so I send a Calendly link. 50% of other accountants aren't even doing that. They're older. They don't even know what Calendly is.
See all the time, hey, could you do this day at this time or this day at this time? And then now you have an email chain that's 10 emails long trying to pick a day.
Yeah, and it's annoying. And then like, if it's not even put on a calendar at all, the client doesn't get an update or anything. Yep. So that right there, you separate out at least half the account. I'd say it's higher than that, but I'm going to go conservative here. That separates out half. Mm-hmm. And then once you get on that call and everything, you're like, hey, look, I'm going to send you a proposal. It's going to list out everything that we do. It's going to have the exact prices. Yep. I'm giving them prices on the call. And if I don't give them on the call, they're going to have them within 5 minutes of the call. And I say, hey, look, no pressure. Take this, look at it, look through it. If you have questions, you can get me on Discord. You can DM me on Twitter. You can email me. You can call me. Whatever you need to do to talk through this if you have questions. And I think that alone is a level of communication. That's like 2 points of communication right there. and they may have talked to their previous accountant twice all year,
whole year.
and one of those was for a tax return. And
the
we
other-
haven't even started
the other
yet.
one was probably some kind of negative connotation surrounding because it was an issue.
Yeah, it was an issue or
I
something.
think a lot of what you're talking about is just ease of access, right? Having ease of access to what you're paying for is important. And I think so many people pay for services, and this could be any type of services in any industry, but they're paying for the service and it's hard, right? It's a painful process. We already know taxes are painful. We already know this stuff that we do is painful because people tell us all the time. But I think that the biggest part is just making it as easy as possible. And that alone conveys a lot of value because people are able to see like, man, I had this huge image in my mind of what this was going to be like. And it was this huge brute force of pain of getting through this return or whatever. Yeah. And then we just make it simple. We communicate that. We basically lay it all out to where action items for the client is very, very small.
Yeah.
And it's done. And they're like, that's it, you know? And I think that's where we can convey a lot of value is just one, quickly. How quickly can we get the service done? And two, ease of access.
Yeah, we had, I can think back to like at least 2 clients, and there were more than this, but these 2 were right at the end of tax season. Because once you get done with tax season and you're looking back, it's kind of a blur, you know, because you do so much work in so little time. But 2 of them we were finishing up right at the end of the year, or the end of the tax season, just trying to like knock it out. And they were like, "Oh, I only owe that much?" And I was like, I was kind of nervous to tell them because they had signed during tax season, so there wasn't much. I couldn't go back and make things happen. It was what it was. Yeah. And so I was like, I got it done and everything. We rounded up their expenses. I mean, we really pushed hard to get these done at the end because all of our other ones that had been with us, they got done early. And so like at that point, we were just like putting out fires. Client comes to us in April. We get them on in April. We get the return out in April, which is unheard of. And I was like, new client, I don't know how they're going to react to this news. And so I tell them, this is like a week after they brought the stuff. And I'm like, here's the situation. Here's where you can pay it, this and that. Give me your thoughts. And they were like, that's it? That's all I owe? I was like, yeah. And they were like, holy crap, that was fast. Like, yeah, I'll pay this at the link and it's done. And it's like, okay, I feel like I dodged a bullet, but 2, because I felt that way and I was feeling like I dodged a bullet and it's right at the end of tax season, I'm tired, I'm not thinking about it. After the fact, a couple weeks later, I'm like, damn, I mean, imagine a world where like we could do that with 50 clients, 100 clients, and just, we bring them in and a week later, their problems are solved. And yeah, they owe tax, but they're like, whew, that's it.
There is definitely so much value in just time, right? Like doing that quickly. And I think that's where there's a lot of pain points with probably other accountants or just, like I said, any other services, right? Is like, yeah, there's going to be some kind of time waiting in there, right? Where it's like, there's an unknown. Well, one, we're trying to eliminate as many unknowns as possible. We're just going to explain exactly the timeline we expect. Isn't always going to be perfect, but we're going to explain that. And then we're going to execute it and we're going to hold you to that. And I mean, like you said, it's unheard of to get it turned around that quickly. I think one of the best things about it is being able to meet with clients monthly and being able to meet with them quarterly. We're able just so many touch points to be able to kind of to reassure them of that value that we're providing. And it's not that we have to sell the client on ourselves every single time we talk, but I think just by, like you said, showing them the data, showing them how things are going to work, answering their questions that maybe catch us off guard, it makes them feel good. And it's just that peace of mind that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, I'll take it a step further. I mean, everything we've talked about up to this point, we beat other firms just because they're reactionary alone. But take the firms who are doing it right and they're doing a really good job. And there are those firms out there, just so that people are aware. I think a lot of accounting gets a bad rap, but it's because of the image, the stigma that's already in place. Mm-hmm. There are firms out there that I look at and I'm like, damn, we need to do it like they're crushing it, like truly crushing it. And I think one thing, not to just brag on us, but one thing we've done well is we've flipped the script. I don't want clients coming to me at all with problems. I want us reaching out to them and we're scheduling these monthly calls and like, we'll talk about the problems then. Not that clients don't like in between the monthly calls, sure, things come up and they'll send us if they get a letter, they'll send it to us. But like you are like a freaking dog chasing these people. Like you are just after them. Like you're like booking these calls and you're following up and you're like, hey.
I probably bother some of you guys, to be honest.
And that's the thing is like, yeah, some people are like, yeah, that may bother them and that sounds terrible, but like, what's the alternative, right? If we don't come after you like this and we're it's not just always trying to get information. It's like, sometimes we do need information to keep the books current, but it's also like, tell us what's going on. Like we're going to almost force your hand to keep us up to date because we want to know, and we're trying to, we talked about the other day, as a business owner now, I'm trying to get the data. Like I want to know, like, how many clients do we have facing this exact problem? Because if I can look at it and say we have 100 clients and 20 of them are facing this problem. So 1/5, 20% of our clients are facing this exact issue. It's like, we need to put a plan in place.
Exactly.
Like this is big enough to cause us problems in the future. And this could be where clients aren't getting service fully. And that's what I'm after. Yep. And so like we're chasing them down and we're trying to get that information for our purposes just as much as we're trying to help them. And I think that flips the script. They're not used to that. Like they're like, I'll tell a prospect on the call, they're like, I never heard from my previous CPA. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to get tired of us, buddy. We're going to come after you.
I think it does just change how things are done because if you're not in the loop and you don't know what's going on, how could you provide those services, right? And I think this all kind of ties back to like, what is our like goal here? And we actually had somebody we met with a colleague in the space, I guess would be, ask us earlier this week of like, what was our goal with our content and the podcast? And like a big part of that is educating people, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to solve people's problems. And that's the core of Game On Financial. That's the core of what we're trying to do is like, we know content creators don't want to do taxes and accounting and all these things. So we want to fix their problems. But to your point, there's going to be other problems that arise that we may not know of if we're not meeting with them.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly seeking out, you said at the beginning of this episode, constantly seeking out what are the pain points. Yeah. It's like we ask our clients for feedback a lot of the times. They're just like, how have the past few months been with us? Like, has it been easy? Have you been able to get a hold of us? Like all these things. A lot of times we get positive feedback, but sometimes it'll be, yeah, well, this is annoying or this thing. One thing recently that we decided we're probably going to change is our portal. We have a portal where clients can upload documents and we can upload documents to them. But what did we learn? We learned that so does every other attorney and accountant, and so does every other person right now.
Finance professional.
Anybody has a portal. And so we're like, well, we don't want to be like everybody else. And not only changing to be different, but changing because that's a pain point. The client has to have a login.
For three, like if they have an attorney, a financial professional, and an accountant, they have 3 different portals to log into. Like I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it, right?
And so it's just those types of things where because we are in the loop and we know what's going on with your business, we can probably seek out those pain points and then hopefully build service offerings to help those things. Yeah. So I think that's been a big thing for us. That kind of leads us to like probably the last question that we're going to have time for, Garrett. And this is with those things that we're kind of seeing and changing, what changes do you see coming to our services? Because we've actually been talking this week about how we can maybe be able to service more clients. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of creators that end up watching this part of the podcast, but hopefully we can get this message out through, our marketing and advertising over the next, few months. But what changes do you see coming to our services based on what we've learned this year?
Yeah, we've done a great job up to this point with our firm in one-to-one services, and we can send out proposals and everything, and that's great. I think in order to go, again, thinking back from 100,000 to 1 million looks a lot different. And, that may be thinking small, like from going from 1 million to 10 million looks a lot different, right? And in order to do that, you have to scale. And all of a sudden, like I have to remove myself from a lot. I have to remove you from a lot. And one place I think we pointed out that is costing a lot of time for us is the proposal process. And we've talked a lot about this, and getting away from that and trying to basically allow clients to self-serve and maybe putting our prices on a website, right? So a client can come and look between 1, 2, 3 packages and say like, this is the one I need. Or if they're not able to figure that out, which will happen a lot of times, at least being able to call. But then at least we're not having to have that call with every client, right? If a client says, oh, I just want bookkeeping, right? Boom, right there on the website. Mm-hmm. They can sign up for it, good to go. And as soon as they do it, we get notified, we get started. Onboard them, get it going.
But also, if they see the pricing and it's out of their budget, then it qualifies.
Yeah,
it's not a waste of our time to get on the call with them. It's not a waste of their time to get on a call to learn that they can't afford it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's qualifying leads as well. And that's another thing I don't think accountants don't do this. Like us talking about leads and sales and all this, like running it like a business, accountants don't do that. It's truly like everything's referral based. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at a website, at least not old school method. Like new school, you'll see some who are doing it. Trying to get to that method and becoming more business owners than just accountants in general. Mm-hmm. That's one way. And so, yeah, it allows us to qualify leads. They can immediately look and see like, oh, the pricing's too much, or, I need something more, I guess, a la carte. I need a more customized service. Like they'll still have that option to call and do that. And so if nothing else, if it just filters out a third of, what we're currently doing in volume with proposals and stuff like that, that's really good. Okay. What I'm excited about is we'll still keep the proposal option just for bigger clients that, again, there's more customization there. For example, they may need literally me or you to get on a call and do the work itself because it requires a higher level of expertise. But that's what you and I should be spending our time on, rather than you and I are spending our time on every client. Like we're going to hit a point where we cannot do that. Yeah. And that's in a way sad, but at the same time, it's just what's required. It's just part of it. Because I want to help everybody. I want to literally touch every client file that I can, but that's a want. That's not going to get us from A to B. And it's just a reality. You have limited
time, right? You have limited resources, just like our content creators have limited resources and time. And so we're not able to, if we were able to do that, you're going to run out of capacity at some point.
And beyond that, I mean, it's my responsibility to the business in order for all of us to grow, I have to grow out of that role as well. Exactly. And then you grow out of it. Exactly. Jamarian grows out of it eventually. And so
that's just growth in general, right? So
yeah. And so those are the changes though. The website's the biggest one right now that I personally am actively working on it because from a decision-making standpoint, setting prices, how I want it to look, all these different things. So
I wanted you to introduce and talk a little bit too about maybe like a separate service option that we're going to be adding as well, just because we've seen kind of a need of, right now, our services are pretty much strictly either tax return, monthly work, or monthly work and tax planning, or super high-level services, outsourced CFO level services. Yep. But what we found recently, and I want you to kind of talk about this and add on a little bit, is there's a lot of clients that maybe just need the bookkeeping aspect. They really don't need the tax planning. They don't need the monthly calls. And this could be because of the size of their content creation business. It also could just be because they don't have the time. Yep. And they don't necessarily value it. Like we talked about earlier, they don't value the tax planning and the monthly calls. And so they don't really need that. Yep. And so what we're thinking about doing is, and this isn't set in stone yet, but adding a separate service option for those creators who maybe they do want those financials. They do want to be able to do it for the leasing option like we talked about, or they just want to be able to know how much they're making, but more of a self-serve thing where we just do that in the background. And then, we're there if they do need anything, they can reach out, but we're not going after them month to month and quarterly plan.
Right. Yeah. We're not spending that time after the fact. Like I was saying earlier, you're not like literally hawking them down. You're not like an assistant is a bad word. You're not their assistant, but you're almost like their customer service, your specialized customer service where any problem, like you're just going after it, like you're just getting after it, trying to solve problems,
creating that communication that we feel is so important. Yeah. Versus this service would be more of you get your books done and you're able to access them and see them, but you're not really getting those touch points that we just talked about.
Yeah, and some clients I think will realize like we've talked through the situations and where what'll happen is like we'll have some clients sign on where they want the monthly touch points, or at least they think they do. Right. And then we both realize like they don't really need this, because we've had clients where we in the back of our minds feel like we're taking their money because we get on these calls and they just don't have the activity to warrant the monthly meeting. And so it would be better if we had that lower tier where they can just get the bookkeeping done and we don't feel an obligation to service them at that high level, right?
And we don't feel like we're necessarily upselling them for a service they don't want, because we're not trying to do that. No. Our goal, like I said at the beginning of this, is to fix their problems. We don't want to sell them on a package that we service with tax planning needs that they don't have. That's just a waste of their time and money, and it's creating us, like I said, chasing them down when they don't want that. That's not right.
We always refer back. So we're higher level service. Even the bookkeeping, if we're just doing that in the background, is going to be a higher level service than you could probably get somewhere else, right? We're going to be obviously making sure they're accurate. And that sounds like, oh, you should be doing that anyway, but that's not what everybody does. But we always refer back to the gym membership. And that concept of like you get a gym membership and you're now paying for it and then you stop going. and the gym's just charging you in the background, and it's probably not for a lot, and so you don't really notice it on your bank statement and all that, and then you've nickeled and dimed your way to, at the end of the year, you've paid $1,000 or something like that for a gym membership you never use.
Yep.
For a gym membership, sometimes they have to do that, especially if their pricing sucks, because they need the volume of those to do it and to get by. We don't. And so the last thing, what will ultimately kill us will be, a bad reputation for basically bringing a client on who doesn't need those services, and they don't know it. And we know it, but we're like, you're obviously a willing customer. You wouldn't sign up. We just assume they wouldn't sign up for something if they didn't need it. But most of the time they don't know what they need. And so we have to be that go-between. I think this option I think it builds more goodwill, because now we're giving more people access to our services, and we're not doing it in a situation where I think a lot of accountants, where they get it wrong, is we're not doing it where we're going to lose out on margins. Like, we're still going to be able to keep the margins high on our end and be able to service it at a high level while still making money. And for anybody who says like, oh, why should you make money? Like, we're a business. We have a profit.
That's the whole goal of any business.
The profit justified. Like, if you don't make a profit, then we would not have the service. We would not offer it. And so I think it's going to turn out well, and I think by adding that to the website, it's going to generate more volume for us. And plus, the customers who come on at that lower level, they may convert to a higher level in the future anyway, but because they're already in our ecosystem, that's an easy swap for us. We can just immediately start adding the services.
Yeah. And also, I think it's just going to open us up to be able to service a lot more people, which is our goal. We want to help the most amount of people possible.
I want all of them.
Yeah, well, we want to work with all the creators. We find just so many times when we talk to our creators that we work with that value us so much, and they'll say all the time, like, man, I wish like everybody could be able to see this and use this. And so a lot of that is just, one, getting our name out there, obviously marketing and doing content like we are right now, but also getting a service option in front of them that fits their budget. And no, will we be able to service everybody? No, we know that, but we do see a need, and we're trying to kind of fill that. So
yeah, damn if we aren't going to try. Like, we're going to try and make it, if we have to produce free content for those who can't afford it, if we can, structure. I don't want to have 37 different tiers of services. This would put us at, truly, if you think about it, put us at about 4. And I think 4 is probably where we're going to cap it. But then also, we've talked about having an ebook in the future that just lays out how to do certain things. We could have a bunch of ebooks. It could be from S Corporation to bookkeeping or whatever.
Type thing that's a one-off purchase that can service somebody who maybe can't afford monthly services. But
yeah, and so the sacrifice there is like, you only have to pay $25 and spend the time doing it yourself. But at least it's coming from us, and we're going to tell you exactly how we do it. Yeah. And then you just have to do it yourself. Yeah. And then the point comes, you're like, I don't want to do it myself. I want to pay. Here we are. Exactly. And so, again, getting people in our ecosystem, the more customers we get, the more clients we get under our roof, the better we're able to serve, because now that's more data. We can look at what problems they're facing, and we can tweak pricing. We can tweak all these other things. So
100%.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I think a lot of people view it as just, we're greedy. We want to work with all the creators, but it really is out of the fact that we want to service them, because we want to fill their needs. We want to help them out. If we could take all the accounting needs for all the creators and handle it in the background, and they never had to worry about it, that's our goal. And so I think it is exciting. It's super cool. And I think this fall we have a lot more time on our hands, because we've structured things well, and we have become more efficient. Probably my next 2 months or so between this set of quarterly meetings and next is going to be a lot focused on marketing and getting some new stuff out, which is exciting.
Yep.
Talking about doing a giveaway maybe soon. So that's exciting. You guys stay tuned. And yeah, I think that's going to kind of do it. We do have a meeting coming up, so we're probably going to wrap this thing up soon. Yeah. But yeah, anything else to add on before we hop off of here?
No, that's it. But somebody did make a good point in chat. So Jamar, if you want to clip this and put it at the front, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found value in this, and comment if you see anything that we could change, anything that you would like to know about, or just anything in general you want to say, hey, whatever. So like, subscribe, comment. Outside of that, I don't really have much. We're super excited about everything else. If you like the setup, let us know, just because as we continue to do these podcasts and everything, we'll tweak it. This is all for you guys. We're not getting on here just to talk, me and Joseph. We have these conversations every day already anyway, so we're doing it live for you guys. If you find value in this, just let us know. And if there are other topics, things you want to hear about, let us know about that too.
Yep. We'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Peace.